Good morning, sir.
Morning.
We are
Regina.
keeping social distance. We have
True.
to. We have to. Indeed, these are different times.
Yeah.
Hi. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Now, just to pick from the president's speech yesterday, Kenyans waited with bated breath to hear what the president has to say in light of COVID-19.
Yes.
28 cases confirmed so far. From where you sit, maybe we just start off with your opinion. Yeah. What do you think of the president's speech in regard to his orders in general?
I can tell you, Regina, that the president's speech was very timely. It could not have come at a better time, because what the country has been facing is nothing but fear. And with fear, people are bound to make mistakes, especially in the decisions that they make relating to their finances. So the president's, the president's austerity measures and general speech, if I may say, could not have come at a better time. This is the time that every citizen is called to act responsibly, and not just responsibly in terms of matters health, but the general well-being. The general well-being in finances, in health, spiritually, and etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So in your opinion is that it came in at a good time. Kenyans needed to hear from the president.
Exactly.
Now let's just go blow by blow, like down and look at some of the austerity measures that the government has put in place.
Yes.
We start off with the issue of reducing the VAT from 16 to 14%.
Yes.
What do you think the impact this will have in the general economic point of view? What impact will it have?
It would be important, Regina, to appreciate that VAT is a form of tax, and government and its operations are largely financed by taxes. Now, the tax is paid either by individuals or by businesses. So when you talk about VAT, which is a value-added tax, it is what every individual buying a vatable good is supposed to pay. Every business that has made some earnings out of its operations also needs to surrender to government. Now, 16% meant a certain threshold that government would be able to get so that it is able to run its affairs. When it is reduced from 16 to 14, then that has a serious effect on both the citizenry and government operations. You talk about 16%, government has a target of what it was likely to collect.
Yes.
Now, when it is reduced to 14%, it starts from me and you, the individual or the business that is entitled to pay the 16%. When that threshold is brought down to 14%, then what are we saying? You are left with something slightly, either for your own consumption, or if it is a business, you still have something left retained in the business for continuity. To help
now,
your
for the
business
sake of
move.
the people who are at home, and maybe this is a question that is going through most Kenyans' minds right now, the 16% deduction to 14%, that is a 2% deduction on VAT.
Sure.
How then will this, let's just put it in simple terms, like a packet of milk was retailing for 52 shillings.
Yes.
Yes, 52 shillings for half a litre of milk.
Yeah.
So now, with this current directive of lowering VAT by 16% to 14%, how will it affect the price of that packet of milk?
Regina, honestly speaking, you can tell from the maths. If at 16%, a half a litre packet has been retailing at
52 shillings.
52 shillings.
Yes.
Then obviously, when you're going to reduce the percentage to 14%, it means the selling price of the same packet of milk is expected to come down.
We are looking at around 50 shillings?
You're looking at around 48 shillings.
48 shillings.
You're looking at around 48 shillings. Yes. Now, with that, then it means the final consumer is retaining, if you worked with 52 and 48, you've got additional 4 shillings left in your pocket to spend. Yes.
So basically that we are looking at around 4 shillings in terms of commodities as it is.
Yes.
But one would argue that VAT reduction of 16 to 14%, while it would just only scratch the surface.
Yes.
And I would want to just look at some of the feedback. One, Tony Gitonga says, VAT, excise tax on essentials and fuel levies, that is expenditures taxes, are taxes that affect the cost of living directly. Yeah. Those are the taxes that President Uhuru Kenyatta should have waived.
Yeah.
What is your take on that? And Kenyans are continuing to say that, some of them, a section of Kenyans are saying that 2% reduction on VAT and still leaving the fuel levies way up there, as well as excise on basics, really it's into my 4 shillings that have been saved. Yeah. Actually, the sentiment is giving with one hand and taking with another.
My take, personal opinion on the same, is that the sentiment is true. The biggest form of expenditure rotates around petrol and petroleum products. Now, if the pricing around petrol is not affected in any way, then the VAT rate coming down may not have a very big or a significant impact on the final consumer. That is a fact. But needless to say, the government also has to balance its own priorities and look at its sources of revenue. VAT is one such form.
Yes.
But we also talk about the excise duty and all that. Once the government reduces the rate from 16 to 14%, surely what it is expected to collect has to basically come down. And it is expected that that is passed on to the final consumer. Mm-hmm. But the people who have commented around the review of VAT rate, but leaving the petroleum products and, or rather the taxes around petrol to be left intact, that has really not meant much. Mm-hmm. I want to believe that if the president and the general leadership wanted to help cushion the final consumer and the general population, then a slight review of the taxes around petrol and petroleum products could have been worked around. Yeah.
Okay, fine. We are asking you this morning, are you satisfied with President Uhuru Kenyatta's orders, or rather what you're calling the government's austerity measures to cushion Kenyans, that is you and I, in light of the COVID-19? And one of them is the issue of the reduction of VAT from 16% to 14%. Kenyans already on social media, and we appreciate your feedback. Some of them, if just read some of what we're getting, is that Peter Pass says the price of petrol should reduce and landlords should not be charged house rates at the expenses of tenants. That's just some of the views that you're already getting, just asking Kenyans if indeed they are satisfied with what the government is doing to cushion them during these uncertain times. Now, sir, you've already said that you agree that if indeed fuel prices play a major role, catalytic role in as far as the economic stands. Yes. Someone also argues that we need to focus that the issue of zero rating. Yeah. On basic commodities, that is unga, cooking oil and such, would have had greater impact to Wanjiko than lowering the VAT by 2%. Yes. What do you say to that? I think as Kenyans, we sometimes rush. And I think from an economic standpoint, it's also good to take time to analyze situations as it unfolds. I think most of the commentators or general public would want instant answers to the situation that is currently unveiling. But I think government was also very careful, and they say they are monitoring, and I want to take a position that this is the first dose of what we expect as they monitor, so that should things change for the worse, should the economics of this country play into the direction that is not very positive, then they would review and come up with additional measures. It may be a bit too early to want to have
all the measures put on the table at once, because no one knows how long this situation will obtain.
Okay, from an economist point of view, maybe,
Yes.
yeah, you know your economic background, that we shouldn't rush. That this is the first of its austerity measures. Now, other than just the VAT in terms of its austerity measures, there's the issue of having 100% waiver to persons who are earning 24,000 and below.
Yes.
Now, when you look at the population of Kenya, is that a handful of Kenyans fall into that category, especially in the formal sector, where a majority of Kenyans are still in the informal sector. Well, this has elicited debate and said that that clearly leaves out the informal sector, especially, and a majority of them who rely on hand to mouth. And during this time, business is on a slow. From an economist point of view, when government took such a stand, I mean, how much, is it really tenable? Is it in terms of, bridging that, or rather saving those amounts of money and cushioning Kenyans, or was it just an oversight?
No, I don't think it was an oversight. I think that was a well thought out idea. Principally, when you talk about people earning 24,000 shillings and below, not being taxed, then you want to understand in the pyramid that is called Kenya, how many of us are at that level of 24,000 and below? I believe, arguably, they are at the base, and they are the majority. Now, you talk about informal sector. I can tell you that studies around informal sector have been done in the past. We still continue studying, and this will continue into the foreseeable future. There is that notion that the poor man down there, the person in the Juakali, the person in the informal sector, perhaps is not being taken care of holistically. But I think one of the good steps that the government has done is acting around those who are earning 24,000 and below. It essentially means you are widening the base to make sure that that person in Juakali or whoever is earning 5,000 or 4,000, the Mama Mboga in Gikomba and all that, they are taken care of in this very broad spectrum. So I think generally government has made a good move to try and make sure that the people who we want to believe are not taken care of are actually in the said bracket. And somewhat, we expect that the benefits of removal of taxes for those earnings will trickle down to all of them as well. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that you're saying that this could also be a move, maybe in the foreseeable future, to have people who are not in the tax bracket come onto the tax bracket. I know Kenyans, the government has been running a series of campaigns to just have Kenyans on board register on their various platforms, I mean, iTax and the rest to just pay their taxes. Sure. Okay, so this can be actually an incentive to come.
It is, and I can tell you at this point in time, government has been running a very heavy campaign, as you have said, to make sure as many people as possible are paying their taxes. My concern is that it has started very late. It should have started much, much, much earlier, so that the tax base of government is also enhanced. Remember, without taxes, then even that government that we want to look up to will not be there to run its affairs effectively. True. So taxes is an issue that we cannot run away from, but how it is balanced out, how it is administered, makes the whole sense around our livelihood as a country.
Now, we have a budget of around that is shy of 3 trillion as we speak.
Correct.
Here we are, and government's pay as you earn is government's main income, or rather income earner, you know, to just finance matters of the budget. That is recurrent expenditure, operations, such and such. So in his orders yesterday, the president issued that there is going to be a pay reduction from from 30 to 25%.
Yes.
From an economist point of view, the ripple effect this is going to have, other than just cushioning Kenyans at this point, the ripple effect it's going to have, given the budget deficit.
Yes.
Yeah, we're already talking about the budget. We're just around 4 months away from the budget. Being announced. So the budget deficit for the year. How do you think the exchequer is going to play around that quagmire?
Yeah, thank you. On this, you must understand that there are both financial and fiscal instruments that the government has at its disposal to apply, especially when it comes to how to run an economy. And like you have said, our budget is in the range of 3 trillion shillings. Now, government will not come in to do fiscal issues and leave the financial aspects out. That is why you talk about PAYE, the pay as you earn as a form of tax, which has been at 30%, being reduced now to 25%. Obviously, you and me, who perhaps are entitled to some earnings, will smile because you left with some money in your pocket. Government, on the other side, will have to cry
yes,
because they have not obtained what they were targeting. But I'm certain that as they were doing this, if you were looking at what was happening in the press, we saw the briefing that was coming from the central bank. Central bank being the key agent of government on matters finance, you realize that they were also talking about reaching out to the Bretton Woods institutions, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, to get a support in the range of 100 billion shillings, if I got it right. Yeah. So yes, government is going to realize a deficit from the physical aspects, and it is expected that when that happens, the other side of the equation will be balanced well from funding from the external sources.
Now, when you say funding, someone would take you back and say Kenya is already grappling with the issue of debt.
Yes.
Both external and, internal. And government has really been working at not crowding, the internal crowding the internal market,
yes,
and as far as debt is concerned. But we have a huge outstanding debt. For instance, as we speak right now, Kenya owes China 3.5 trillion shillings.
Yes.
So when you're saying that, are you trying to say that we will cross the bridge when we get there in as far as this deficit? Because definitely there's going to be a deficit.
Yes.
Then from a macroeconomic point of view, what options do we have there in as far as we're doing funding? I know there's the issue of IMF.
Yes.
But IMF, or rather borrowing from IMF, comes with preconditions.
Correct.
Is Kenya, over the years, Kenya, it seems, is not willing to or rather ready to follow what the preconditions that IMF has been putting in place. So then where will we find ourselves? Just trying to look into the future.
Regina, of course, the journey ahead is obviously bound to be a bit bumpy. But I believe government also has its good strategies and mechanisms to help manage the bumpy ride that we are going to face going forward. One thing I know, and a tool which obviously will be put into good use, is rescheduling of loans. Yes, we have deficits that we must work around, but this is the time that I'm expecting the Treasury and other financial advisors to government to understand that given the times that we are in, even if we owe China and other countries money to pay out, it is about time we start thinking strongly and seriously about how to reschedule those loans so that they are carried over and paid over a time that will not cause much pain and strain on the general economy of this country.
The ripple effect, or rather what you're calling the domino effect of COVID-19.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the informal sector, SMEs.
Yes.
So yesterday, in part of his orders, the president reduced the turnover tax that came into effect beginning of this year in January from 3% to 1%.
Yes.
One economist, and I'm going to quote what Ndi said,
yes,
and he said on his official page, so I think it's correct to actually pinpoint it.
Yeah.
He said that for the duration of the crisis, income or turnover tax will be nil. VAT returns nil. So I doubt that they will have cash on hand. So this reduction of turnover tax that targets especially SMEs,
yes,
and
yes,
KRA as a taxman has really been rolling out campaigns to have people, come pay their turnover taxes, as a way of just widening the tax bracket.
Sure.
Now we've reduced it from 3 to 1.
Yes.
Is this in any way going to help SMEs, the informal sector? Right now you walk in town, these businesses are not open.
There is something I will tell you in economics and generally in finance, that when you're about or when you're expected to make a certain payment, and you consider it huge, remotely or ordinarily, what would you think about? How I wish this burden was a bit less. Now, I'm applying that philosophy to help you understand that what government wants to achieve really is not the nil return that Dr. Ndi is talking about. But we want, our government wants to make it fairly easy or manageable to the extent that you don't feel shy when you're expected to pay a turnover tax. So then you look at a position of an SME. SME somewhere that is expected to pay, if it were 3%, say 10,000. But now that it is reduced to 1%, you know that what translates to. 1%, perhaps it is 7,000, yeah? Yeah. Looking at that, then it becomes more attractive for you not to feel the pain when you are paying. And I believe that is the dose that government is really targeting and the taxman. That don't look at it as a huge burden that you simply want to run away from. Yeah. So ultimately, the expected collection will come down, but it will not be at nil because more of the people who are in that bracket would still feel that, fine, it could have been worse, but government has done what it could have done. It has come down, so let us run with this. And that will be called to pay anyway.
Indeed, a very smart move there by the government. That is what our guest this morning, who happens to be the Hazina Sacco CEO, Dickson Okungu, saying that this is the smart way of government, just encouraging, despite these hard and uncertain times, encouraging you and I to pay our taxes. Now, we've asked you if you're satisfied with what President Uhuru Kenyatta said in phase 1 of his austerity measures, as he said that government is still going to continue observing the situation and giving mitigation strategies and measures going forward. Now, you're already getting feedback, and we appreciate. Remember, our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1 TV and at Ray Manyara, as well as at Channel 1 News. Now, Rose Muthomi says, a majority of Kenyans are poor and cannot afford to stock up. What happens to such people? And these kickbacks to banks, who are they going to benefit? I don't expect that all of a sudden banks will extend loans to poor Kenyans who have no collateral. And he continues saying that his package cushions the rich and a section of the middle class. That is what Rose Muthomi has said in regard to whether she's satisfied with what the government's austerity measures. Now, this comes squarely at your door, being a player as a Sacco within the financial sector. So government here is, first of all, even before we speak about the CRB that Kenyans are very happy about, we're talking about the issue of liquidity.
Yes.
Right now, people are shopping, people are stocking up. And let's talk about the issue of the banks. Yes, the Exchequer, CBK, said that you can suspend your loans depending after you've had a conversation with your bank to up to 1 year. But from an interview with some small traders and importers, they said that that directive by government remains ambiguous because they had questions. Among the questions that the small traders under Easter had, that is the Importers and Small Traders Association of Kenya, led by CEO Samuel Karanja yesterday. He said, question 1, the suspension of these bank loans, does it mean they are going to repay them on a higher interest rate? That's something that was left blank. Yeah. Secondly, those with personal or personal loans, how then, given what the Bankers Association pullout that was put out in some dailies yesterday said that you have to have a conversation with your bank to have how to restructure these loans. So you have to show how the situation has affected your earnings. Thirdly, as far as SACCOs are concerned, we're talking about savings. How are you ensuring that you survive or rather remain afloat? Because this is back office transactions and operations. Maybe we can start off with your opinion about the ambiguity of that particular statement in as far as suspension of loans is concerned. Are traders, correct to say that it is a bit abstract and left at the mercy of the conversations between the banks?
Thank you, Regina. I think before I respond to that, let me say something which I think is also important for viewers to take into account. We have a culture, and this culture is not very good, if I may call it. That out of fear or out of some statements, people want to rush to supermarkets and other places to buy so much and stock in anticipation of a problem. It is not bad to do that, but I think the scale or the rate at which it is being done is what I have a problem with.
Panic shopping.
Panic shopping.
One would say it's the rule of it's in nature. It's about self-preservation.
Yes, you would say that, but I think it is about time we evaluated that so that we sit it at the right spot. When people are going to make purchases that are not so well informed and which will undermine their situations in both short and long-term positions, then that should ultimately be discouraged. I have seen Kenyans rush to do shopping. And when you're out there and you listen or hear the conversations around the curfew, for instance, then you realize that we have normalcy. We should go about our businesses the whole day, but then be back at home from 7. Now, what is then the rationale of saying you want to have your fridge equipped for the next 1 week, for the next 2 weeks? I don't know, stock grains that will last you a month.
Okay.
Now, what I'm trying to bring out, Regina, on this is that basically it's undermining our savings culture and even our ability in terms of the transactional choices that we are supposed to make at any one given time. Now, I wanted to respond then to your question about the element of the bank loans.
Yes.
The bank loans and the CRB and the need to...
Let's deal with the banks because they are... First, as an individual, you have to have a conversation with your bank so that you can come up with the restructuring mode of it.
Yes.
But now traders are asking for a directive, a clear-cut directive from the top man to say that either, and if I'm going to be, the suspension, yes, comes into effect, can go up to 12 months, but not on a higher interest rate. I mean, Kenyans basically saying, and I want to put it out there, Kenyans do not trust the banks.
Yes, Kenyans
to
don't.
Put their interests first.
Correct.
And we've learned from before.
I think I want to respond on that, trying to also capture what is happening around us, because I think we are about the economy and we are the players inside it. So we should understand what is happening around us. Now, you start by looking at what central bank was talking about, that they have since revised the lending rates by 1 percentage point, if you remember, from 8.25% to 7.25%. What are they saying? They are saying that they are creating an environment to help the banks now that they are in the business of onward lending to the general public.
Onward lending.
Onward
I want to
lending
zero on the word onward.
To the general public, that when they are going to do this, then the pricing of their loan products
will be more affordable.
Yes. So with that in mind, that gives you and me, the public, an opportunity when you now come to face your bank to talk to them, that you are coming from a point of good information, good knowledge, good background. But be it as it may, loans are personal. So much as the man at the top has already made a pronouncement on what he expects and how banks should generally operate, or the financial institutions generally, it will not be, and it can never be, a blanket position.
Oh my goodness, that's so
crushing. It can never be.
I think Kenyans are very...
So that is the direction perhaps that Kenyans are imagining that it may take.
Yes, because we've heard from other countries that they are doing it. Are you saying this cannot happen even in the foreseeable future?
But here we are,
for Kenyans?
we are, a third world, if I may call ourselves, looking up to those countries to bring in resources or finances to support our own economy. The moment we want to start cutting and pasting what happens there to be localized here and to carry the day, then we are not being realistic.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So you've heard it. Loans are personal, so get in touch with your various bank to just try and restructure your loans. there's already a directive there. You can suspend your loan up to 12 months, but you have to show how this current situation has affected your ability to repay your loans. Continue, sir.
Yes, so again, you're asking what perhaps for us at the Sacco that I work for, that is Hazina Sacco,
yes,
what are we doing? I want to first start by saying that we have created an enabling environment in terms of the channels of communication for our general membership, that they can reach us at any one time and talk to us about their issues on matters loans. Now, with that opening of the communication channels, we are there to listen and address the issues that they will have or the concerns that they will have at individual level. And I believe this is what will cut across for other SACCOs and even other financial institutions. It is about coming forward to engage with your banker or lender on your circumstance and how well that can be addressed. Number two, for us in our SACCO, we are careful that Kenyans now are rushing to do the shoppings and all that. But we want to make sure that that is not done at the expense of good savings culture. So what we are saying, and we are encouraging our members, is that, look, we have a medium for you here in the form of dividend capitalization. Already I can disclose here that Hazina Sacco has done its annual delegates meeting. That was held on the 29th of February this year.
Now, talking about the mitigations that your SACCO has done,
yes,
and just as we come to a close,
yes,
as we come to a close, especially Kenyans are already a worried lot in terms of, I don't know why we are panicking. As we come to a close, the issue of liquidity from in a minute, in a situation right now from an economist point of view,
yes,
for a person who is watching at home,
yes,
what advice would you give that Kenyan who is seated, twiddling their thumbs? They've already been told not to, they're working from home, and they're worried about the future in as far as Kenya is concerned, especially the economic point of view. How then would they make better choices in their spending and probably even try and save up, if it's possible, in 1 minute as you come to a close?
In 1 minute, Regina, I would want to tell our viewers countrywide that the situation that we are in is extraordinary. That is a fact. But it is more to do with the health than the general elements that we are supposed to work around in a normal situation. So having taken care of our health issues, the sanitization, the hand wash, the keeping the social distance, the quarantining and not moving and all that, and then now working from home, let that other part of us in our daily lives not be distracted 100%. If you must go to work, please go and work. If you have your earnings, get it and spend it wisely. Let us not rush, because we do not know that this situation will go for how long. Yes, but I think it will be dangerous to appear to be so fearful and then act out of fear.
Very well said. I'll not try and water down what our guest this morning has said there. That is Hazina Sacco CEO saying in these uncertain times that we need to maintain a level head so that we do not make choices that will affect us in the future. That is in regard to how we are spending, and if you can, stay at home and work, but make informed choices. That is Dickson Okungu, the CEO of Hazina Sacco, who was joining us this morning to just put a perspective into regard to the government's austerity measures, especially announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta this morning. Now, it's a wrap on my end of things. I'm Regina Manyara Gitao. I wish you a pleasant day ahead, and I hand you over to Doreen Arange.